and we begin to work on our own infrastructure, redevelop our manufacturing. Why don't we do that?
I don't answer why questions. It goes to intent.
Okay, let's go.
I'm sorry about that. It all makes sense to me. I'd be with you. Hey, I'd chuck in, and I'd even vote again if we had that going. But, we have barriers to entry. And we have a mindset that, I'll vote for this incumbent because at least he's my crook. And, you got to get out of that mindset now. You got to say we need a third party, we need a fourth party, we need to be as fractured as France was in the 60s, just so that these idiots don't get into the situation of controlling us the way they are now. I mean, in the 60s, France may have had 30 or 40 political parties all with a stake in the national elections, and it was chaos, but no single party was able to dominate, and the citizens breathed a lot freer than they are now.
Clif, I have a friend of mine who sent me an email, and he's asking about, this will change direction a little bit, but the alien meme in South America, and if you would comment on the hyperchroniacs, or however you're pronouncing it.
Yeah, hyperchroniacs. From chronos, from time. And it actually probably should have been hyperkaryos, because there's two different kinds of time as the Greeks defined it. The regular mechanistic kind of time, that your clock keeps track of, or the sun rotating around, the earth turning and so on. Then there's the quality of time, which is karyos, and that's a consciousness and emotional sort of a thing. And it's really these hyperchroniacs are experiencing time at different ways. And I think it has to do with these external energies from space coming on in. If you really want to experience or research it, you can look up this guy by the name of Gurdjieff, G-U-R-D, and many different spellings, Gurdjieff, in Google, and look for a thing called the Solilunius, because in the 1800s he was of the opinion that the sun caused us to experience things like time on different levels if you were sensitive to it. And those people are actually occurring now, where we have strange reports. People with time running backwards, disappearing, extra time, all different kinds of stuff showing up that hadn't been particularly visible 2 or 3 years ago as a general discourse on the net, and yet here it is now. So we are clearly in different times, pun intended, and I think the energies from space are causing a lot of humans to experience it differently. Like if you're among those 6%, you're electromagnetically sensitive. I'm sure that's impacting you.
And what about South America? Do you see anything on the alien agenda down there?
South America is really interesting because we thought it was going to be the site for the huge mass sighting in the summer of 2009. But, of course, we were wrong on our geography, and it was actually China. But now there's still the gathering issue. There was two components to the alien thing. There was going to be a mass sighting, which we've actually occurred in China, and with some level of officialdom present, and in the Plum Mountain Observatory, they got 40 minutes of film of a giant UFO near the sun, supposedly 500 miles across by 30 or 40 miles thick. And then there was going to be a gathering component, which is to say lots and lots of people for some reason would be gathered together relative to this alien issue. And I don't really want to make this into self-fulfilling kind of a deal, but there are indeed signs now in the current data that we're getting that this gathering is indeed occurring in the indigenous populations, and that's really all I'm going to say about that. There does seem, and maybe we'll know more in, say, a month. So if we talk in a month or so, maybe we can readdress the question. We'll have some details to discuss.
Okay, thank you.
Could these aliens, for lack of a better term, could they possibly be from our future as opposed to being extraterrestrial?
Okay, we have to be real clear about that. It's quite possible. Anything is possible, and I could be wrong, but my understanding of universe wouldn't permit time travel to exist quite that way, because here's the issue. Time is one of the aspects of continuous creation. So universe is creating itself around us, continuously through us, in our consciousness now. It's not like it happened and we're living in a solid world that's evolving or anything. We're in a continuous creation. And so since time is one of those components, if you alter time, if you step outside of that, then you have to step outside of that whole continuous creation, and you're in effect in another universe. So it eliminates the issue, by the way, of killing your grandfather, because you'd kill your grandfather in another universe and doom some other you. But it wouldn't be the same, but you'd never be able to get back to your own universe is the problem. Once you step outside of your particular time-space matrix, you've altered it irreparably and, in essence, created a whole other separate universe going on for you. So I don't really buy the theory, no. But I think they do, in fact, use time to travel. So they get around time and traveling, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're from our future. But hypothesize somebody in, say, Zeta Reticuli or in the Pleiades or, on Sirius, and they want to come to Earth. They don't want to spend all those thousands of years in sub-light speed travel, and they don't even want to go faster than light because you get really big with all this heavy mass from Einstein's equation. What you really want to do is just step outside of space-time for a period and then step back in where you want to be. But you're not really coming from the future. You're just holding your presence in this current continuous creation in abeyance for a second and then allowing it to come back in.
Yeah, more of a form of interdimensional travel as opposed to...
Correct, and I was sort of like talking with my wife earlier. I was saying, well, the real way to go to Australia from the Pacific Northwest is to go straight up a number of miles, 145, 200, whatever it takes, wait for the planet to rotate underneath you, come down and just veer off a little bit to the left, and you're there in about 3 hours. Because the planet rotates about 1,000 miles an hour. None of the 17 hours of jet travel kind of stuff, right?
Got it.
And it'd be sort of the same idea.
Well, we're going to come up on a break here. We got a caller to get to. I got a question to ask, and we got to put a wrap on that in 4 minutes. I think we can do that, Cliff, but we're going to get challenged. Stay tuned, everybody. We'll even you step on your own intro. Anyway, hi, everybody. This is Dave Hodges, and our special guest tonight has been Clif from the Webbot, and also joining us on a spotty basis is Annie DeRiso. She tries to overcome those technical issues that have besieged her in Nashville. Annie, are you with us?
I'm here, Dave.
Okay. You came back just in time to ask that great question, though. Anyway, Cliff, one of your students called in and just got a brief moment here to get your reaction, and I think we've touched on this somewhat. He wanted to know about propaganda techniques in the media designed to manipulate human behavior, and I think you kind of hit that when you talked about the fear aspect.
Yeah, you can track the language, and in fact it's really curious, of course, that we find now that the powers that be are using the minion class, our government, to pay people like ministers to go to school for 2 and 3 weeks to learn how to manipulate language to achieve specific fear-based states. They called it something other than that, but that was the whole point. I've seen one of their manuals.
Well, I'm seeing that attitude sweep across the country as well, too. That's not. I haven't heard that, but that's not surprising to me.
Well, language matters. I keep saying that. Yes. Years ago, everybody said, oh, you're a fool. It doesn't really matter, blah, blah, blah. And then the spin comes in, and boy, it sure does matter, doesn't it?
It certainly does. And again, let's make your work available for the listening audience. So how do they get a copy of the Alta report that's coming up?
They'll be able to go to halfpasthuman.com, and there will be a buy now button, and you'll be able to buy it for $10, or you can mail us a check, and we'll send it to you. But if you send a check, please send an email address, because we don't do hard copy. It's usually too big for us to print out and mail.
And what about credit cards?
We don't process those, I'm sorry, because that bites into the whole corporate thing. We do PayPal reluctantly because it's sort of the most karmically clean, because you can set up a number of different ways to pay to PayPal, either through credit card or your bank or whatever, and it just leaves us out of the whole process. I don't want to get involved with credit card companies in any way, shape, or form.
Well, that's what I was hoping you were going to say, and come back and say we're not going to charge the 30 to 50%.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're doing international transaction now, they've got all kinds of weird fees and stuff they're putting on there. Plus, like I say, the whole corporate mentality stuff really, creeps me out. Hairs on my back stand up when I start getting involved with those people.
Well, I think that your next report is certainly going to be advancing what's happening in the language on the 25th. And Annie and I'd certainly like to have you back after your next report is out. And we'd like to explore that with you. And Cliff, as always, you've been very gracious with your time. And I personally want to thank you for your work, the hard work that you put in to trying to inform everybody. And let's hope you can keep going as long as the powers that be or you choose to let yourself.
Well, it's kind of like I'm a little flea. They don't want to squash me just yet. So
that's a good point. Well, Cliff, thanks so much for joining us here on the Common Sense Show, and we'll be in touch to set up another interview with you after the next report comes out.
Thank you very much, guys. I'll talk to you then.
Okay, thank you, Cliff.
Good night, Cliff.
Bye, Annie.
Bye.